hello everyone, and welcome to our FLC Member Connect webinar series. My name is Vladimir Popov, and I'm a Mid-Atlantic Regional Coordinator for the Federal Lab Consortium, or FLC. My other job, full-time job, is I run a Partnership Development Office at the Frederick National Lab for Cancer Research, which is also Federal Lab, or FFRDC. Today, we have a very exciting topic and a great expert who will guide you through the evolution of what's commonly known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and what that legislation means for the federal tech transfer. So please join me in welcoming Timothy Klein. Tim has an impressive career, and which started in NASA, after which he moved to the Department of Transportation, where he held a number of prominent roles in innovation, research, and education administration, and policy advisement. And currently, Tim is the Director of Technology, Policy, and Outreach within the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Research and Technology at the U.S. Department of Transportation. Tim will present the lightning talk on the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, also known as Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. Tim actually Tim was very involved in drafting this law. So today you get to hear from the real life expert who contributed to this. So Tim, welcome and take it away.
Well, thank you so much. As said, I'm Tim Klein. I'm the Office Assistant Secretary for Research Technology here at US DOT. Yeah, I helped draft the research title of the law, so I'm more than willing to take questions about that. I just want to highlight the link at the bottom of the cover page there. We have a website set up here in the department for all things about the bill, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and how we're implementing it. As NOFOs come out, everything like that, policies about implementation, that's your place to go. If I could have the next slide, please. The bill, as you know, is a $1.2 trillion item. I can only speak to the transportation parts, and that's not to minimize the others. I know a lot of our friends across the interagency are working on broadband and water infrastructure, the power grid, resiliency. Of course, EV charging is a big issue, addressing legacy pollution, other things. I don't want to minimize those things. I just can't answer questions on them. So, but we have much more money than we've had in a very long time to deploy across the nation's transportation systems, and we want to do it in a way that adopts research and technology results in which you've been working for the last 2 decades, and with our goals always to improve safety, tackle the climate crisis, advance environmental justice, invest in communities, and of course, safety is always our #1 here. We're a safety regulator first and foremost, as well as being the infrastructure, transportation infrastructure people for the country. So very quickly, look, these are our major buckets of what we're doing here in the department. $5.2 billion for highways. Now, just to put that in context, that's about 4 times what we've normally gotten in the past for that. A big bucket of money for bridges. All heard about bridges, big issues there. Airport upgrades, $3 billion for that. Transit is in the tens of billions of dollars to improve transit services everywhere, as well as buying new energy efficient buses and ferries and subway cars. Federal Railroad Administration has grown, I think I've heard in some parts of the organization they have 10 times as much money as they have had in the past to improve both rail and Amtrak service in the United States, hopefully provide new services, provide major improvements to facilities in the Northeast Corridor. I hope that's true because I noticed on the dial-in here, I called some of my friends from the Volpe National Transportation Systems Center up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where sometimes I've taken the Amtrak up to Boston to meet with and be with. They're part of our organization as well, so shout out to my colleagues there. Ports, waterways, and flood mitigation. A lot of funding for that. Lots with the Army Corps because they, of course, do inland waterways, but there's a lot of work we're doing in ports. And then that red box at the bottom, just in research, what we describe as research, which is everything from crashworthiness of vehicles to improved bridge designs and anything else you can think of across all modes of transportation, is about $4.5 billion a year over these 5 years. You'll see work in self-driving vehicles, driver distractions, all fuel vehicles. We're going to be moving heavily into cybersecurity issues as we move in all that direction, as well as a lot of work in data development, data infrastructure, because as you all well know, Internet of Things, AI, all these things we bring to the field all rely on data, data collection, data validation, and security. So we're having to get in that much more strongly than we used to. I'm not saying we've given up on concrete and asphalt and steel, but these are more than overlays to existing things. These are going to be built in a lot of places, and that's exciting to us. Next slide, please. Here's the requisite slide my boss insists I give all the time. Our office, the Assistant Secretary of R&T, we're the Chief Science Officer for the department. Scientific integrity and everything related to that. We're the facilitator of research programs across our whole portfolio. Almost every operating administration in the department, there are 9 of them, have its own research projects, but we make sure they're not only not duplicating, but working together towards common goals. We have the lead for civil uses of GPS and also spectrum management for civil uses, not just for transportation, but for all non-warfighter uses. So we have a lot of interest there. Obviously, implementation of intelligent transportation systems, emerging technologies. List of organizations there, you see VOPI's there, etc. And then we're increasingly involved in research, education, and training through our University Centers program, for which a NOFA will be coming out probably within 6 weeks. Next slide, please. Here's the meat of what I want to tell you. Innovation in the bill. In all the implementation we're doing, in all the formula funding that's going out to state departments of transportation, metropolitan planning organizations, and transit agencies, and as well as the multiple number of competitive grant opportunities that are going to be funded over the next 5 years, implementing advances in transportation that address issues that we know and help us plan to address the future, especially when it comes to infrastructure resilience, is going to be baked into all these things. So even though I'm not going to spend a lot of time on those big infrastructure grant programs, I want you to be aware that we have a piece of that, and that folks who are involved in research that has to do with energy and environment and are going, we need the information, we need the intelligence, the understanding, we need people to partner with the state and local and tribal and territorial agencies that are going to be building the infrastructure and deploying the technologies to give technical assistance and field assistance in those big budget programs. But I wanted to highlight a few for you specifically in which we have direct involvement in our office, and that really are trying to lead in some more advanced work beyond what our department's traditionally done. The first bullet on the left are the SMART grants. That really is smart cities, smart community technology deployments. It's not so much a research program, it is a deployment demonstration program. Scalable results to provide better transportation services to communities, especially underserved communities, while also addressing climate mitigation, resilience issues, things like that. It's going to be a very open net on that. We will have our first NOFA on that coming out by the end of the year. It's a very high priority, which means it goes very slowly through the process because everyone wants a piece of it. But that's one that we're very excited about. This is kind of a new thing for us. Something that's not a new thing for us is the University Transportation Centers program. We've been managing the UTC program of some type since 1988. But this is really being focused on state-of-the-art transportation research with a bigger emphasis on tech transfer of the results. This has always been one of the big issues for us, is we have these kind of arm's length university grants and relying on the university tech transfer system to bring things forward. And we're going to be more engaged in it. We're going to be trying to bring much more attention to bear and assistance to bear on getting results into practice, be the actual commercializable technologies or just improved practices, improved processes that save time, save money, reduce carbon footprint, all those types of things. And then I can't even pronounce the acronym on this one. If our Advanced Transportation Technologies Innovative Mobility Deployment Program is a rename of the existing program. But again, the goal here is to deploy in scalable forms advanced technologies and innovative mobility deployments, not necessarily in a smart community data-oriented manner, more in the traditional way that we in transportation see technology deployments, either to improve infrastructure or to improve multimodal mobility. So those are some of the big ones we're coming out with very soon. On the right-hand side, you'll see three things that are still conceptual because even though they're in the bill, they were not funded. We've been approved to stand up an ARPA-I, modeled on ARPA-E and DARPA. I think anyone who follows transportation technology knows we've often been a laggard in applying technologies, not always been the best at capturing and advancing our results, and certainly not had the capability to think on the more advanced research side of things. So we're working in project planning on that right now and learning from our friends in defense and energy and other places who've done such programs of how to structure this so that as funding becomes available, we can start taking some even bolder steps forward in advanced research. The Open Research Initiative may seem like something very simple to many of the mission science agencies, traditional mission science agencies, but we don't have one until now. We can now, again, it's not been funded yet, but we're putting together a structure to receive unsolicited proposals that address our unmet research and technology needs. Not funded yet, but we're putting the package together. And certainly we've been talking to a lot of folks across the agencies who have really good unsolicited proposal or open research type programs to get best practices, put that in place. Then the last one is a Centers of Excellence program specifically on transportation resilience. This is a little odd in that there are formula funds going to mostly to states to improve the resilience of infrastructure, both currently built and as we're rebuilding infrastructure to have resilience built in. The intent here is to have 11 technical centers of excellence nationwide to address these things. Again, not yet appropriated, but that's an ongoing. The interesting thing about those is they're looking at a 15 to 20 year timeline for those centers as opposed to the usual 3 to 6 that we've often had in our centers. So those are some of the top things in innovation. I would note, you see a little link at the top of the page in the blue that says Innovation Principles. Secretary Buttigieg has issued his own innovation principles for us as a department as we're managing the delivery of the bill. And I bet you would look at those just so you know what we're thinking and the guidance we have, but also linked to that page is a bunch of other things we're doing that we consider innovation, that we're already doing or building up to doing across the department. Again, a lot of the research is done not by our office immediately, but is done through Federal Highway Administration, Federal Aviation, Federal Transit, Federal Rail. So if you have a specific topical interest, I would go to that link first, at least get a sense of it, and we can always come back and get questions and direct you if you have more questions. Let's go to the last slide because I really want to get to questions here. Or second to last slide, maybe. I was asked specifically to talk about data and technology where there are programs where there are big data needs. And this goes back to my earlier comment about these aren't research programs. These are infrastructure programs that have significant data management, data design, data integration, data handling, and the whole data spectrum involved. And that's everything from the mega projects, which are the big multi-jurisdictional projects that affect whole regions of the country, to the protect grants that I mentioned. Those are the resilience grants. A new program about safe streets to improve safety, and there's a lot of work tied into that on sensors, sensor management, and artificial intelligence intended. Reconnecting communities, rural programs, improving accessibility to transit. We've been working on that a long time, and we're going to be able to make a lot of advances. And then, often forgotten by many, but improving our ports, not just to help address the supply chain crisis, but also to address significant environmental issues that have built up around America's ports over hundreds of years. So there's a lot of non-traditional technology, non-traditional infrastructure that we're looking at, that we're planning to deploy to meet these needs, or to meet these challenges. So one wants you to be aware that these are places as well where good experience and understanding of how to do this and assistance is probably going to be needed. So I think I have one more chart then. Oh, let's not forget, of course, because I forgot. No, electric vehicle charging has gotten a lot of the news coming forward. Certainly, I mean, $7.5 billion, which is not insignificant. Just so you know where we're at on that, I mean, that's being run by a joint office of energy and transportation between both the two cabinet level departments. There's going to be it's going to be deployed through the states through Federal Highway Administration formula funding to build along what we've already designated as alternative fuel corridors from past legislation. So planning on all that is going on, and then there's going to be, let's say, formula funds for kind of, shall we say, basic thing, but then there's also going to be a competitive program to increase charging access especially in rural and underserved communities, which otherwise might not see a lot of charging support in the early years. So that's all going on. We do now have the Joint Office of Energy and Transportation stood up. Again, largely focused on the front end EV infrastructure, but you'll know in the world of energy in EERE, there's an entire division devoted to transportation energy projects and research. We do a lot of work with them already, so we're building on that. There's a link there, driveelectric.gov, if you're interested in the Joint Office. And the last thing I wanted to mention before I take questions is we have reestablished in the Office of the Secretary what we call the NET Council, Non-Traditional Emergency Transportation Technology Council, recognizing that they are new or evolving modes of transportation or techniques, even technologies of transportation that fall outside our existing safety regulatory structures. Hyperloop is the one everyone always points at. Who regulates that? Who makes sure it's safe? Well, it's not rail, and it's not highways, and it's not, yeah. So we're using that as an intake point for some of the great new ideas, because a lot of these folks are already venture capital and on their way, but to make sure that we're keeping people safe, however their freight is being moved. So that's a place for ideas to come in and be addressed by department at a policy point of view. We already had that set up. It's been written into law now, and trying to make sure that we can support all the pieces of it, not just safety, of course, funding, financing, and the whole environmental review and permitting process, which again is not written for new emerging modes. So that's something else we're working on addressing. Okay, I'm going to breathe now because I blew through all that in a hurry so we can get to your questions. So where do we start with questions?
Thank you, Tim. I think I prompted folks to feel free to ask any questions, to write them in the chat. I do have actually one question. Maybe I can start off. You mentioned in the beginning. So first of all, this was very impressive. It was a lot of information on a couple of slides, and I think I learned a lot on a DOT. But you mentioned that obviously you have significant funds now after a long time. And so thank you for helping draft this and contributing significantly to this bill. But my question is, how long have we been waiting for this? And was this a long overdue? And the second part of that question is, how long does something need to be overdue in other areas, not just in transportation, before it deserves or it gets attention of folks like you who are willing to put effort to draft this?
Well, depending on who you talk to, some people say this level of investment in our national infrastructure, it's easy to argue that it's 20 years overdue because you look at deferred maintenance, not just in transportation, in dams and in the energy sector and all our critical infrastructures. You could argue that part of it. But when does it get attention? Well, when things fall down, we would like to think. But by that token, we should have done something when the Minnesota bridge, the I-71 bridge, fell down 15 years ago, and we couldn't get traction then for a major investment. So, but from a time point, I mean, our usual, it's unusual, but surface transportation authorizations run normally 5 to 6 years. So usually about a year before the bill expires, that's when we start doing serious writing and discussing among the policy structure of the department and the White House, and getting with our congressional colleagues to discuss what's the next steps. This one ended up being about 18 months overdue by that standard. But then again, we were 6 months overdue with FY22 appropriations. I mean, so from a government, we're all government people, but yeah.
Could be worse.
We got an extension for a year of the previous authorization. So, we were able to continue to do regular work, but the ability to take on new programs, to be able to take on new work was a couple of years overdue. And we had some things that have been sitting at least that long and some longer, until we can get the authorization in place. Those of us who come from technical backgrounds, I mean, I've now gotten into this whole policy world. It's a lot easier to design your own experiments, run something on a bench and publish a paper than it is to get an act of Congress made. I'll just tell you that. But and in some ways much more satisfying to print your results. But there you go. That's a good question. Thanks. Let's see.
Thank you. Thank you. We did have a question from John Eisman. I'm not sure if you can see the question. I
can actually. Yes. Hi, John. APHIS. Right. Okay. Airport infrastructure recipient funding. The airport infrastructure mostly has to do with expanding access for security purposes for airports that have not been able to successfully redesign for safety and security, both from 9/11 and more recently from the COVID situation. Some are for specific airports that have runway incursion issues from aircraft. There is an ongoing airport safety research program at the FAA on bird strikes. You're probably aware of that. I don't know if they're to be honest, I don't know if they're intending to take any of that money specifically for BASH, but I can get you an answer on that. I will ask a colleague and get you an answer on that. The FAA program. Okay. Hi, Bill. Bill Barron from Volpe there.
Yeah. So I'll just let you read it. I'll let you read a question.
Well, if that's okay with you, I mean, Bill's a friend from Volpe up in Cambridge there. Impending storm of projects and grants that need to be managed. Project categories we should be planning and preparing for. Well, yeah, obviously. I would suggest, Bill, and this is, I mean, maybe we should have a separate conversation. Oh, what is Volpe? Oh my goodness. Volpe is the Volpe National Transportation Systems Center in Cambridge, Massachusetts, across the street from MIT on Kendall Square. It is the strong engineering and research arm lab of the Department of Transportation. Not to say we don't have others. Obviously, there's the Hughes Research Center for the FAA in Atlantic City. There are certainly others out there, but Volpe is the multimodal lab. They do a lot of work for the FAA, for FRA, highways, transit, all modes, on a lot of topics. Some is research, some is deployment. So in answer to your question, Bill, I would definitely lean towards things where Volpe's have past strengths, where there's just an amazing amount of need. Certainly the environmental impacts of transportation, the environmental permitting issues, the accessibility issues for transit and rail. There's a lot of money that needs to move on that, and a lot of folks who don't know how to do it in those communities would be places I would start. That being me. Maybe we should talk more offline, but those would be big things for the Volpe Center specifically. I think the thing about it for everybody else on the line, we are not staffed for this as a department, either in research or in grants management or anything else. I mean, we're used to doing a program that is not $1 trillion, but roughly half of that in 5 years. So we are staffing up like crazy. We are pulling in people from all sorts of places. We have people on detail from at least 20 federal agencies I know of. But the Volpe Center is often places we go first, because the great thing about Volpe, it is a federal center, so we can give work up there that is inherently federal to get it done quickly and with the appropriate protections and all, especially on data. But yeah, it's going to be everything, Bill. It really is. Communications obviously is the other one. If we're going to be moving data and IoT, the folks who are working in the communications surveillance area are going to be very busy.
Perfect. Thank you, Bill, for that question. I had a quick question. You presented, and if I caught it right, the bill is kind of assigning a lot of dollars. I think $4.5 billion for research efforts. And I know we have a lot of federal folks here, but I'm hoping we have outside folks too. And is there a distribution or some kind of a percentage what goes into the federal research and what goes to external research through grants and other processes? And I know you haven't finalized everything yet. There were a couple of initiatives that you said are still being finalized, but just a quick ballpark.
Yeah, sure, that's right. A lot of that money will follow paths that our money already goes to, in the sense that a lot of the research we do now in the department goes out to universities or to other external entities through the FAA and the Federal Highway Administration for their specific research goals. The challenge here that we're facing is that we are being, the bill is certainly expecting us to reach beyond our traditional safety research, human factors research, and those things that support our regulatory processes, to addressing environmental and community access and other issues that are not our traditional areas. So I expect that much of that will end up going out to experts in the field to help us do, because we don't necessarily always have the experts inside. But I don't have a number break. Nobody has fully sorted this out yet, to be honest. We're pushing just to get the first 15 or 20 NOFOs of all kinds, be the infrastructure research, whatever, out the door this year, before perhaps we can settle down and really focus on some of the, you'd say smaller, given the size of these numbers, but some of the smaller items that take attention. So I don't have that break.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. And now I know we're right on time. We probably have another 30 seconds left. So I would like to use this last couple of seconds to thank you. Thank you for being the speaker for today and for a great enlightening presentation. I would also like to thank all the attendees and FLC staff who helped organize this. And just a quick prompt that our next event, Member Connect, is going to be on the Blue Cyber Initiative on May 4th at 2 p.m. And you will be receiving more information and registration info soon. So with that, thank you, Tim, so much again, and have a great rest of the afternoon.
Thank you all so much for the opportunity. Take care.
Take care. Bye.